bad actually. And the first thing that sucks for me on that level is that, well, if I'm developing things, there are certain scenarios, like I'm working on a very long running pipeline, something that I'm doing a lot lately is starting things on Google Cloud Platform data flow. And before that thing starts, it's a few minutes, right? But in the meantime, I want to develop. And um, I think it was somebody on the chat said, yeah, well, if I'm have something running and I forgot about it and I shut down the Hop Gui, yeah, what is happening, right? In the case of remote uh, workflows or pipelines, those things are still running, but I don't have an idea about what's going on. I can't see the status anymore from the GUI. It just detaches. So more and more of these requirements come along. Like I run something, but then I want to change the pipeline. So now I'm running a pipeline where the metadata is changed, and maybe I have actions or transforms that are no longer valid. You know, and so on and on also. So a lot of suckage for previewing things, just like these pop-up dialogues. It's not really the best thing to have, and so on. So for those kind of things, we need a new way of doing things. So a new perspective was what we had in mind, but you guys are the drivers for this. It would be cool if you say, I'm going to run this pipeline, and it switches to another perspective, which offers the same kind of GUI, but in a read-only mode and with more options to click on transforms and see the data flowing through, and metrics and charts maybe, and trends and stuff like that. It would give us more room to do cool stuff with a zoomed graph, for example. So that's one option. Other ideas, nothing has been decided, but it would be cool to hear from you how you struggle with these kind of topics. And then on the that's a high level thing, and then on the lower level thing, what are the annoying things? I click on something and then something doesn't happen what I want. So make sure to pass those along. All right. Who wants to give it a first go?
If no one volunteers, I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Can you hear
John,
me?
go ahead.
All right. Should I share my screen?
Yeah.
Let's see. I need to drag you to the other screen, otherwise you'll see everything double.
I'll take a few
Okay.
notes.
Google. Show the entire screen. Screen number 1. And share. Oh, it should be coming up.
Yeah.
Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah.
So the first thing, like it's much more mundane than what you had described earlier, Matt, with detaching on a remote session or something like that. But what I recently struggled on was I had like a big file with like hundreds of fields, and I just wanted to edit the data type, and like I realized that I have to basically go into each of these fields and use the drop-down thingy to fill this down, right? So if I just wanted to bulk change the data type, maybe I was just doing it wrong, right? But what would be cool is something like, I don't know, like an Excel, right? That you say something like this and you fill down, and that's it. Which is especially handy for like bulk data type conversions.
So yeah, like Dan said, there is like a copy field value to all rows. So if you change a field to say integer, John, so just try this for fun and then hit enter, and now you can after that you can basically get the menu from the table view up, and typically this is done either so right clicking on the column row, for example, works. And then there is an option, copy field value to all rows.
Do the last one.
Oh, Jesus. It's, I forgot to
we
switch it back
can't
to
really
English.
see it because
Right.
it's too small, but
Okay, but that's the way. That's the way how to do it. There is a way.
that is for all rows. It would be maybe cool to have another option to say copy field values to selected rows, right?
Yeah, either that or have some sort of like a little magic thing at the bottom right corner, like an Excel, where you can just drag down, right?
Yeah,
something
those,
like this, where you have like this button here, and then you can just do
that is really fancy, and it usually doesn't work on the web. On the
right.
web client.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
select the rows and yeah, maybe we can make a Jira case for that, saying like add an option in the menu to copy changed value to selected rows, right? That would
Right.
be useful. Yeah.
Oh, so that was the first thing. The other thing that maybe I was also just doing it wrong is like when I open the menu, right? So I have like all these items here.
Yeah.
Is there like what I personally would prefer if there was an option to kind of just have that as a list, like an explorer, right? Like not have the matrix with the icons, but just have a list. Something like, I don't know, like here, right? So I'm able just to see it underneath each other, not grouped, just sorted alphabetically. I tend to find the grouping a little bit like confusing, even if you switch it on and off. So I prefer to just have like a list, like an explorer.
Not sure what version you are using currently, but in the most recent builds, we have added tags to all the transforms as well. So we added keywords, and if you type in a keyword, all relevant transforms will also appear.
Right. Well, the keyword search is the next one I want to bring up. So this is the latest. I just downloaded like half an hour ago or something.
So yeah, that one has keywords.
But yeah, so the tree view I think is possible. I don't think it's that hard to do actually. It will be a long list though, John. You would have to do away with the icons and a lot of other things to make it somewhat feasible, I think.
Oh.
Or maybe make it really small icons or something like that. Typically, what I found in these tree views, or even in this view, is that I don't even look at the list. I just type in what I need.
Mm-hmm.
It's just much faster.
Yes, that is true, but you need to know kind of what you're looking for that. Sometimes
yes.
You don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah, and for those scenarios where you don't know what you're looking for, those keywords that Hans just said are crucial, right? So if you say like, yeah, I want to add an ID or a unique or something, the add sequence transform needs to pop up, but it didn't. Same with a lot of other scenarios, right? Where those keywords were, they're in the API now, and we added it, but they were not always filled in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, the keyword search is extremely helpful. I want to demonstrate one issue because that's the third one that I have on my list, where it's a bit funny. So I just downloaded it, the latest and greatest Hop. By default, it uses my local locale, which happens to be German. Okay. Now there are some things that are translated and others are not translated. As you can see, some items here, for instance, this is German, but the others are not. And what's a little bit annoying to me is that some of the step names are translated and others are not. And I find it difficult to find stuff. So for instance here, right? So dimension update lookup, and here it says like Kombination update lookup, which is, I would actually prefer like either to have all in English. I know how to set it, right? So don't get me wrong. But if someone who's new to the software, you know, like they would run into this and they find it confusing. So for instance, what also would be useful if you search, that it also automatically searches the English translation as well. So for instance, if I want to search for row, right, it doesn't find everything that relates to row. It only finds those ones where the translation into German hasn't happened. Right? Because there's like a lot of stuff that says like Zeile, which is the translation of row. And they only show up when I search for the German word. It would be cool if I search for row and then it kind of like it searches for my local locale, but also by default behind the scenes using the English thing. Because quite frankly, like everybody who's looking up something on the web or some documentation, they'll always see the English word.
But yeah, maybe for incomplete languages, I think German, Dutch, there's a bunch of them. Maybe we can just default to English, and if somebody wants to put it in German after that, they can, right? I don't know what you guys feel about that.
I think it might be a nice idea to add some sort of production ready or alpha or beta tags to the languages and not automatically change to that locale if it's still in beta or alpha phase.
Yeah.
Because I know
certainly help.
There's only a couple of languages that are close to fully translated.
Yeah.
Italian, Portuguese,
French.
French is also great. So yeah, I think Chinese and Japanese are also pretty well done, but they need a revisit.
But I also like the idea to have the search include English, even though you have a different language as your current locale.
That is something that we can do, actually.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So last point on my list, and then I shut up. Did I, like in Kettle, it used to have like the function component. It seems to be missing here. There's probably a good reason for that. But like, I don't know, like I want to have like a whole bunch of fields, and I want to have like elaborate calculations to calculate, let's say, a file name, right? How would I currently do that? Like I would have to do like a lot of steps, right? So for instance, I want to concatenate a file name out of different things, and maybe I need to parse something else to extract the year and the date, and I want to make that part of like an output file name. I know how to do it, right? I could do it in multiple steps, or I can use the calculator, but it would be kind of handy if it was just one step on the canvas where I just have my big calculation.
So but Ingo, you mean the formula?
Yes, formula, sorry, not function. Apologies, yes.
So we cannot possibly include that because of GPL code violations, not to mention the library is more than 12 years old, something like that, without any updates. And that being said, I did look into it, and there is an Apache POI library that does very similar things. So yeah, once I have a few hours to spare, which is not going to be this week or next week, but I will probably just create that new formula step, but it's not going to be the same formula, but something similar.
Yeah, that's no problem. Like to be frank, like the old one did suck a little bit as well, right?
It was an idea from OpenOffice that used Pentaho libraries, Java libraries to do the functions in certain whatever, right? But then that whole idea fell flat on its face, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. The formula library just got abandoned at some point, but yeah, it was interesting to see that so many people used it, because I didn't think anybody would use that when I wrote that step. But like you said, there is like this need to have something simple that people are familiar with, I guess, right? Now the POI functions are those from Excel, so they might be more suitable for that purpose in general, I think. Right?
Yeah.
They're the same formula as what you find in Excel, so people would know them already, and maybe it's easy to document them as well.
And as an
that's it
alternate,
on mine.
as an alternative, you could grab the JavaScript transform and do most of those things using a couple of lines of JavaScript.
Yeah, if I knew JavaScript. But yes, that's the.
John, you were raising your hand. Sorry, I mixed you up with Ingo.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Welcome.
So, before I asked the question, I was going to say, Ingo, that the idea of the formula step, I've used the formula step for the last 10 years, at least, on a lot of different things. And I use it because it's just nice to have like a single equation that does something that you can kind of just write your equation. Now, I hated having to learn a completely new formula language to write those equations there. And I would say for a lot of stuff for analysts and stuff doing ETL work, if you're doing stuff in the Microsoft enterprise, maybe if we could use some DAX. So if be able to take the DAX language and do some stuff with that. Or
What is it, DAX?
DAX. So there's a lot of things in DAX that can be used to manipulate stuff, or just use Excel.
It's a new language for me.
Okay, it's
How do you
I-
spell it?
Yeah, they use it for Power BI and stuff, right?
it's used in Excel. You can use it in Power BI, but it's kind of like a mix between MDX and Excel language.
Oh, okay.
So
So
it takes
do the
MDX
hours
and makes it
quick.
easier. So that's just one thing that I would get. Man, it would be awesome to have DAX capabilities inside of Hop. Probably a pretty crazy idea, but that would.
No,
the whole goal of this is how to make it unsuck, and I don't think it sucks, but just crazy ideas would be take a language that a lot of newer data modelers that haven't progressed to using tools like Hop yet, and show them, hey, we got DAX in here now, or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. So the question that I raised my hand for is one thing that I struggle with regularly is integrating with the various APIs. So there's always the authentication process of, am I connecting to a JWT process? Am I connecting to a new MSAL process in Microsoft Graph? Am I going into Postman and pulling a new collection that connects to some type of OAuth authentication stream or something like that? And I've always struggled with coming in and either in Pentao or in Hop building that type of, okay, how am I going to authenticate with Azure Key Vault, pull the keys from that and integrate with other things. So I don't know, I don't have the right answer to this, but the problem that I have is how to, like, it would be really awesome if we could just be, okay, we got it working in Postman, import from Postman. Something like that, because most of what I do, I'm working with external APIs, and I've found that Hop is amazing at it, but once you actually get that authentication process.
But I guess you've mentioned now 3 or 4 technologies that I never heard of. So Postman, I don't know what that is. And
okay,
so this is
wow.
probably because
Yeah.
Certain environments are just so Microsoft centric that they, I guess,
So, okay, Postman's basically just a tool for developers to use in working with APIs. So it's a kind of a way of scaffolding out, testing
REST,
different.
yeah. REST client, basically.
It's curl wrapped in a nice interface.
Yeah.
But it has SSO stuff built into it, and OAuth built into it. It's pretty easy to test a lot of things. So when I'm connecting to a new data source, I typically what I do is I go search the public collections first and see, hey, has somebody already done this? And there's like 50,000 different public collections out there. Typically, you can find something, download it, use that as a starting spot. But almost everything I'm doing these days is I'm connecting to external data sources and pulling it in for what we're working on.
Yeah, so the general answer is that authenticating has come up before. For example, for Kerberos, you have something similar to do, right? And I guess it's another plugin layer that we need to build. And what I do think is that it needs certain, the way that it was done in Kettle was like, it would pop up a dialog in case authentication was needed, which is something that I find particularly obnoxious. So we need a better way to do this in the workflow of the work that we're doing. So it's worth thinking about. There's all sorts of authentication that is happening in the background. For example, for virtual file system drivers to Amazon, Google, and Azure, same thing, right? We made it work, but I don't know. I don't like it too much. It works, but switching from one environment to another is hard, impossible actually. And the same for authentication. If you switch from one environment to the other, the authentication should theoretically follow as well to other, let's say another Hadoop cluster with Kerberos or something like that, right? And so that's a challenge for Hop in general, is making all those layers depend on variables, which was not the case so far.
Can you set system environment variables through Hop?
Yeah, but those work on the system level, so they would apply to all projects that are loaded.
Yeah, but what typically, like for instance, I know with Azure and also AWS, like you have like those system-wide environment variables, right? Like AWS profile, AWS session tokens, which are only valid like for whatever, like a few seconds, a little bit longer. Usually, what you do is like to have some sort of process that polls every 5 minutes and generates a new session token, and that just writes it to the system variable. Right, so usually like I know for different projects they have like little Python script that just runs and calls the API and generates a new session token. You could do the same thing in Hop. You have like in the first step in your pipeline, it polls it authenticates, generates a session token, stores it as an environment variable, and then like all your subsequent steps are already authenticated because at the system environment level, like the AWS or Azure command line use that by default.
So yeah,
and it goes away after a second, after it's expired, right?
So again, like you said, where are we going to do this? At the beginning of a pipeline or a workflow? What if you're working in the GUI? When are we going to do when the GUI starts? When is the appropriate? So those are all valid questions to ask. I think we just need to find a nice architecture for it, but it's not something that I think is particularly hard to do. It's just
yeah, I see it as a separate metadata object that you plug in the transforms where needed, and you only have like one central authentication with OAuth. It stores the key, it uses it everywhere. If it expires, it requests a new one. And then you can in the HTTP transforms, you just have to say, well, use this metadata object, something like that.
I would highly recommend looking at the kind of how Postman has done it for, you can set environment variables, have a check selection of different environments that you can pick, kind of like what you have in Hop already, which I love how you did it. So much better in Pidata. But then you can pick at different layers where you do authentication and which type of authentication. And so taking a look at Postman is I can't think of a better way. So I'd say copy them, but if you had something like that, it would make it much easier to work with.
Yeah, it's a great idea to steal from other people. The
It's open
ideas, I
source,
mean. Yeah, great topics actually. I had a quick look. Microsoft actually has a Java SDK for DAX. I think it's actually from Amazon.
That
So we can.
that would be news to me.
I don't know what it's worth. Make calls against DAX clusters with the current version of the DAX SDK for Java. So it's not really DAX as a language, it's more like DAX management. Knowing Microsoft DAX is going to be a pain.
So it was just a crazy suggestion on DAX. DAX is more for data analysis. It's data analysis expression language. But think of DAX standing.
Yeah, and you can like do set operations and that type of stuff, like in table pivoting and all that type of stuff in a function. So I'd be more than happy if we just had like Excel-like function right at a row level.
So MDX was a mess, and so they created DAX.
Which I like DAX a lot. Like MDX never made sense to my mind. And Excel, I was like the company expert in Excel, and then DAX came out, and it's like, oh, this is like MDX but simpler with Excel mixed in. So that's how I've viewed DAX for the last 7 8 years.
Yeah, we can look at that. I think it would go too far to implement it as a standard in Hop, but maybe there are some libraries that we can use to do that. For language support, I think there's also Matthew Burgess' superscript step that he gave permission to use over Twitter. I think he gave that permission. And that one has like JSR 2232 support, which means that it supports Groovy, Python, a whole bunch of scripting languages for the Java virtual machine. Pretty much all of them, I think, are supported. So that's another one that we could have as an option. And then the formula transform, I think, if we port that one as well, then yeah, we have a nice range of options for all sorts of people, right? Any other pet peeves that we can go through? And with your permission, John and Ingo, I'll create Jira cases for those tomorrow. You don't have to do that. I took some notes. I'll write it up, and so that way we can keep track of progress. But yeah, the biggest ticket I think is the tree view in the context dialog. Figuring out a nice way to represent that. And yeah, incomplete languages. That's a good one as well. Formula expressions. Yeah, the Apache POI has a nice library for it. I already had a look. It's not that much work to implement something. The lib formula, the formula step had like a GUI with I think help built in and stuff like that. I don't know how easy it will be to replicate that, but just a help button with proper documentation would go a long way, I think, to just make that work.
Yeah, it would be useful if there was like a little preview button or not preview window at the bottom. So if you type something in, that you can at least give like what would the formula result of. That helps troubleshooting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something about a scripting language. I forgot to take note. What was that again? Like superset or something?
Yeah, Superscript was a step that was
Superscript.
written by Matthew Burgess. I think Matthew Burgess on GitHub, and
Yeah.
GitHub super. Let me see if I can find
I think I've got it. Don't worry about it.
Matty B149.
Yeah.
And it's the PDI superscript, PDI script engine plugin or something. And
Okay.
I think this is the one. And so, yeah, Matt is doing work for NiFi now, but he used to work for Pentao. And he is also in the NiFi PM, and so he donated to us. He gave permission, so that doesn't mean that we should do it, but it's pretty cool to have like all these extra languages at your disposal if you prefer to programming in Groovy or Python. So there's Groovy, JPython, but there's a whole bunch of others that support JSR 223. And, languages, JavaFX, AppleScript even, PHP, Bex, there's like a whole bunch of them. Bean Shell, what else is a good one? Ruby, yeah, Ruby is also stuff like that, right? Even Smalltalk. And so that's a good one. So what else? Spit your fires.
Are you working on a Hop version?
No, it was tempting though when Sergio said, I'm gonna write a book. Do you want to join me? I said, yeah, you know. But then he said, I don't have time anymore. And then I go like, I kind of don't have time either. My personal life is a little bit messed up right now. And so, yeah, busy job and then book. Augusto.
Hi, Matt. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you again.
Yes.
So yes, we have some request features we want to share.
Sure.
Also to start to discuss. So let me present my document. So it will be easy to follow. Okay, so I know Christmas is coming, so we have a long list of wishes. As you know, we are very close tied to big data use cases. Most of the projects that we work with the clients involve a Hadoop cluster, and we have in the traditional scope yet to Hadoop is not dead for us. So we work tightly close with this kind of environment. So one of the first concerns we have is about to create the Kerberos ticket. We know we can do as a system. We already tested, but it will be very handful as a dev hopper. I just take the word as developer hopper, developer of Hop. I hope you like it. As a dev hopper, I want the ability to specify my Kerberos principal and GitHub location or password and get a valid TGT from the Hop and not the need to do outside the system. I know I can do as a script. So,
So, Augusto, would you like to have this as an action maybe or something like that? How would you see that in the workflow?
I not know for sure. The usual way is to specify in the property on a config, but as you discussed before, we believe that just handling one credential is not enough. Because having multiple sessions and multiple flows that can go to different systems can be a limitation that we have seen before. So if we have the ability to specify the correct credentials for that flow, it will be very handful instead of a global configuration. Landy, can you extend this topic?
So what Hans mentioned earlier was the idea to create like pluggable authentication metadata where Kerberos would be a plugin type, and maybe what would be best is to have options there to say automatically authenticate at the start of a pipeline or a workflow or something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and this also is related with the second topic, is the automatic renewal Kerberos ticket. As we know, some jobs can last a long time or can be in the middle. So just the same out system need to be aware to renew the Kerberos ticket if it's kind of expire, or if it's not existing, to create a new one. So these two features are very close tied together in order to have this authentication mechanism. We know Kerberos is kind of a math thing, but once you have it, it's easy to follow. So I will move to the next topic. We also tested some drivers we use with, sorry, it moves very fast. With drivers with Hive and Impala, we found typically with these clusters. But first, we didn't have the option to find a direct connection type. Even with the Apache Hive or Apache Impala drivers that already exist. Here we used the drivers with Cloudera, so we went to the generic database formulary. But one thing we find hard is that in our test, the URL was very low below, and we don't have the easy way to write there. So it's like a glitch, or it's gibberish in this formulary when we select generic database. So here are two features. One is that Hive and Impala can be a native connection type, or in the generic database, compose the form better. Another thing we found is in the preview for rows, it doesn't behave good with the Impala and Hive systems, because the query writer assumes that this table needs this quotation. And isn't. So once we try to preview the first rows, it sends error because it's not good.
Yeah, it tries to.
But if we use the other OpenSQL, it's easy to see it was written good, and it gets the results. So it happens in the both drivers with Hive and with Impala.
So yeah, that should be an easy task to add, Augusto. The Hive Impala driver should be easy to add with the keywords and stuff.
Yes, another thing that we found in the stocks is this button show layout. So when we press it, it stuck forever, and even if we try to close this button, it failed.
Yeah, that's probably a UI bug.
Yes, it's another thing.
But
so-
that might already have been fixed as well,
Yeah.
I think. But also the layout of the generic driver, the driver URL is now in the normal position. It's you don't have to make your screen bigger to see the URL to enter your custom URL. That has also been fixed and will be released in 1.1.
Okay.
Okay.
So this was done in the latest binary we found from October. So another wish is to support VFS interactions. So as a developer, I want the ability to use different file system other than the local file system when I work with different objects like CSV input or text output. So I can append SVTP or HDFS, for instance, into my path. So we tried to do these interactions and we fail in find how to enable this interaction. So I don't know if this VFS support is on roadmap for.
VFS is supported everywhere except for the CSV file input transform as documented.
Okay, so maybe it was misleading.
So you can use the text file input transform, but the CSV file input transform was written for direct access to local files for performance reasons.
Okay.
It does all sorts of crazy stuff like parallel loading and stuff like that.
Okay. Yes, so there is a lot of use cases here because at the end, VFS it could be used also in the pipelines to check if a folder exists in the remote system, or to list the files that are already there. So I think there is a lot of interactions here.
So in general, yes, but you should check the Apache VFS project because certain operations are not supported by the underlying systems. Like, for example, check if folder exists on a remote SFTP doesn't work, or some of them work, some of them don't. So it depends. So not every operation is automatically supported.
Okay, so then it will be good in the in the documentation, as you mentioned, to only specify if this step support VFS operation. So we will be more aware to where to use or how to use.
Yeah, so it's documented on the Apache VFS website.
Oh, okay. So that leads me to another interaction that I use a lot. That is interaction with the HDFS system. So also as a developer, I want the ability to define connection properties to HDFS cluster. This is commonly comes into this deployment configuration, that is HDFS site, core site, because here there are the values to properly handle HA features like the protocols, ports, user-defined HDFS system. So I can make the usual activities like put a file or get a file from the HDFS system. So we also didn't find the way how to interact with HDFS in Hop in order to make this happen, because the usual ETL is to place a file, then connect through Hive or Impala and run a queries to transform the data. So this is our entry points into make the use of the file system. So common activities is copy file from system to remote HDFS, or to move files inside the HDFS. So are the common use cases, and we didn't find the way to make it happen.
Yeah, it's now documented. I think we only recently figured out that HDFS was supported through the standard driver, and I just took a quick look, and Apache VFS has various ways of allowing the configuration to take place. So I think we just need to add a configuration option for that, like we did for Azure and the others. But yeah, you just want to have the connection properties XML files, right?
Yes, that's right. Most commonly, there are the HDFS name node and the ports. It leads to a connection to common operation.
Or isn't that like Hadoop home or something that you have to set? But I'll take a look at it. I'll Jira it. Again, it shouldn't be too much work to get that working.
That's right. So last feature we didn't found is about the Spark Summit. So in the traditional way to execute jobs in a Spark cluster is to send your Python code or your Scala code through jar. So once you configure this Spark Summit to find the Spark binary and send the job to the Spark cluster, usually we will have a step to configure this. Where is the jar located, the binary of a Spark, and then set the parameters. So we didn't find this step native in Hop.
No, we haven't done that.
Yes, for sure we can call a script, but it's a commodity to use a step in Hop.
Yeah, I don't think it will be that hard either. It's just not something we've done yet. I think all that code was part of the Pentaho Big Data plugin, which was very monolithical.
Yeah.
It uses all sorts of, let's say, shims and hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes, hundreds and hundreds of megabytes of data. And yeah.
Yes, it's not a big loss because, as I say, I can do it as a script. But for newcomers, is a good candy to have the ability to use a Spark Summit natively in Hop. And the last thing, it's also in the UI. Let me show you.
So Augusto, which version of Spark are you guys using? Just as interest.
2.5 currently.
Oh, you're still on 2.5?
2.5, and Spark is growing to 3.0. So maybe the next year it will have more exposed to use Spark 3.
Yeah, we support Spark 2.8 now on Apache Beam. So those libraries are already, let's say, part of that plugin. And yeah, doing a Spark submit with that wouldn't be too much of a problem. So we can look into it.
Yes. So only my last request is about this modal window. Here, when I do a click in the UI, it appears the modal window, but I don't have the ability to drag to other place. And this becomes a problem with two screens, because with two screens, this modal window appears in the second screen. So I cannot move more closely to my work where it's going. So I don't know if it's only in my environment. I use Arch Linux with Genome, but that will be some kind of experience for me, because I can drag it or change from the screen.
Using GNOME, yeah. That's GNOME on Ubuntu.
Arch.
Arc Linux.
Arch Linux with GNOME current version, I think, is 3 point something. It changed frequently, but
I'm on Kubuntu. KDE uses GTK3 libraries, and you are where, Bart? On Mint or?
No, Arch and KDE as well.
So same behavior is on Windows, right? If you have a dual screen, sometimes the menu or the context menu pops up on the other screen.
Sometimes it's also
But you can still drag it, right?
Sometimes it's the theme. I've noticed that some people have problems with certain themes. But I also think it could be an issue with didn't certain Linux distributions move to Wayland?
Yeah,
Wayland.
Wayland.
By any chance? Could you look that up?
Yes, I will check, because yes, it tends to change the manager. I think I with X11, but yes, I will check.
Yeah, so that Jira case is something that you best create yourself with more details about the environment and the underlying system that's used. What I can also recommend to check is the Java version. If you're using like a Java 8 version, make sure to use a very recent one. That's also been sometimes causing issues. But other than that, I think it should be just GTK3, right?
Yes,
No,
JTK has been playing wild sometimes.
Yes.
The biggest issue for both for all platforms basically is that I noticed that Eclipse moved to Java 11 for their libraries, and so that is something that is kind of getting annoying for us. So at some point we need to move to Java 11 for Hop as well, to keep supporting all the latest improvements of all these desktops.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, so I will send you this document to you, Matt and Bart, so you can take my notes clearly, and so for sure we will follow in the Jira cases and apport as much as detail as you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yeah, these user interface issues. I remember people complaining about OS X on in the Kettle days. It's horrible, right? If you have these bugs they're not getting fixed. So we'll try to see what we can do, but it's not always Hop's problem either. And on Windows, I just made some progress with the dark team, the dark teams, but it's still a long way to go, figuring out all the internals of SWT and how those map to Windows. Unfortunately, there's still apparently no unified dark mode API. And if I look in, if I put Windows 10 in dark mode and then open Notepad, it's still white background, white menus, the whole shebang. It's not like they have something that works for all their apps. The apps need to handle that independently. Hey, Dave.
Hello. I do have something that would, an idea that maybe make it easier for development. When I'm on the palette in creating a pipeline, it would be nice to pin the transform menu, so then you can keep adding transform after transform without having to keep popping it up one at a time, unless there's already a way to do that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe have
I got,
somewhere or something.
yeah, I mean, I got used to, or a different place to grab it. From the kettle days, using, you could just keep, because you always had the list
There was
visible.
was that shift double click or control click or something, and that would just add it to the last selected step in the transformation, I guess.
Just double click, I think.
No, double click. Yeah, double clicks added it.
And added the hop.
Control double click added it and opened the dialog.
Oh, that
Something
possible.
like that. Yeah.
Added it and created a hop definitely as well.
And the problem with that one was that nobody knew about it. And when you showed it and people used it, it was like, oh, I learned this new secret way of working. So the cheers, Dan. So the trick will be to add a hint or something, or some message in the context dialog, I guess, right? Add and keep open. Maybe shift click and then it does that in the background, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe even drag from the context dialog on the canvas. I don't know.
That's even, it's on top of the canvas. No, I kind of like the idea that Dave had, like just maybe have some shift click or something, or right click, or I don't know how that would work on touchscreens, but it could work, right? Not everything has to be simple when you have a mobile phone to work with. Let's see what we can do. Maybe shift or control click and then it just keeps open and just adds it in the background. That could work. It's still kind of like weird that you don't immediately see what's happening, but add a button maybe somewhere. I don't know. Add to selected transform or action from context dialog and keep open. Yeah, then you can just click together the whole pipeline and then just start editing. That's the use case. Good point. Great idea. Already an hour. Any other great ideas or pet peeves? This is good stuff.
So I received an email as well from someone who is unable to be here, and he also had a couple of pet peeves he wanted to add. He stated, well, it would be nice to be able to, in our file explorer, to reorganize workflows and pipelines and have the references updated automatically in the background. So if you, let's say, have something on the top level and you drag it in a subfolder, that it would scan the other workflows and pipelines and update the reference inside the project.
Yeah, we talked about the ability to refactor stuff, right?
Yeah, something like that.
To rename, to not just have like a global search, but also a replace, which would allow things like, okay, I want to refactor this field name all over the place in one go, or I want to, and then we could tie that into that file dragger dropper.
But I like the idea. If you drag something to a subfolder, it would ask, well, you want me to find the references and then update this as well?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
This is how IntelliJ does it, right? Like it automatically detects that, hey, this causes a refactor, and then it's like, do you want a refactor? And then it scans everything. Right? It's really useful.
Well, I think IntelliJ has an index of all these things, but yeah, we can just scan. It's not typically it's not like gigabytes of metadata, right? It's like usually it's like maybe a megabyte or two, right? Maybe 1,000 files is still not a lot, right? 5,000 files is still not a lot.
So another thing he said is it would be nice to be able to drag and drop folders, files into Hop. I think we've heard that one before.
Yeah,
that
that
should be doable
to add back. Yeah.
And he also really likes the fact that in the file browser he can open files. He says it's just a pity I can't open SQL files. Like you can open the JSON files.
So yeah, so in case anybody wants to help with that, there's I did like a whole frenzy of these file types. So JSON, XML, they're all just subtypes of text. And I think the only one I made editable is JSON. But yeah, I think it's stable enough to just open it up for everything. But for those file types, I think there need to be some kind of like additional check. See, like, hey, this is 47 gigabytes in size. Are you sure you want to open this, right? Or else you could potentially run out of memory. So
yeah.
Yeah, great points. Do we have a name for this mysterious contributor?
It's Mark.
Mark.
Yes. So another thing he said was, and this one I've also heard come up in the past, was when you have these transforms that require a sort, it would be nice to, either have this sort baked in the transform itself, or instead of just giving a warning, this needs to be sort, maybe ask, do you want me to add a sort in front of this for you?
Great idea.
And actually, a similar one is
doing automatic sorting. Oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, I just said a similar one is the set of transforms that require a single row if you use them as input, a REST client, for example.
Yeah, same thing. A row generator, then add a row generator before it automatically. Something like that. Yeah, those are great ideas.
And then last but not least, he would like to have an official Helm chart to deploy in Kubernetes. But he said, I've made my own Helm chart, but it would be nice to have an official one. So maybe I'll just ask him, well, why don't you hand over your Helm chart and it will be the official one.
Yeah, that's how it worked with the Docker container. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that simple, right? Over time, people contribute changes and fixes and patches, and yeah, it improves quite quickly the Docker image. Customer of ours has been testing it the last couple of days. So a huge company in the United States known for home decoration stores. Yeah. There's other work that was done with Hop. One company that is known for 140 character messages online, and now 280 characters, stuff like that. It's been really a lot of fun to see Hop shine in those scenarios. So yeah, Helm charts. Didn't you also have something, or
Not yet.
not yet? Okay. All right.
I have
Cool.
another quick question. So maybe this already exists, but you can point me in the right direction. Is there like a way to sort of automatically generate documentation? Ideally, some sort of pipeline visualization, something that's clickable HTML that says like, oh, this data source and this field gets data lineage, I guess that's the right word. Is there something like that generated?
So Ingo, I did like a project some weeks ago, a Friday afternoon, Friday night fun project, which turned into an obsession. And let me see. I think it's called Autodoc or something. Doc. Oh, it's one of the project lean things. Plugins. There we go. So this project, and there is no release for that. Let me see if I can find that. The release is called Just for Fun. So that one creates like a PDF of everything. Jeez, where did I leave this? Give me a second, guys. It's actually pretty cool. The Lean project that we started, that Bart and I started a long time ago, basically is a engine-based rendering engine. So it's like Hop. It uses metadata to define presentations, and presentation is then a report or a dashboard or whatever kind of presentation you want it to have. And trying to get just zip that up. And so the work on that has stalled a little bit because we we were busy with Hop. Unzip in the plugins folder of Hop. There you go. So I just put a release in there. Choose a tag. Bloody hell! It doesn't want me to release this. A pre-released, not yet. Yeah, I'll figure that one out. But that one allows you to generate the PDF, and the next thing will be the export to HTML. So basically, with embedded SVGs for all the pipelines and workflows. And then there's like a whole list of requirements that you can come up with, like there's like a documentation metadata type that we can add more and more features, like generate metadata documentation, generate whatever, right? Add descriptions, add this, add that. The idea is that the presentation layer it's just metadata, so it just constructs this this composite where things get looped over, and it just renders all the things that you need. But
Yeah,
you
and if
can
it was
visually-
linked,
yeah, go ahead.
if it was linked, let's say you added a step or a pipeline or something, if it was linked to the Git
Yeah.
commit or something,
Yeah,
right?
we could do that, right? Because we know the metadata, we can load the metadata, and we know what's going on, right? So we know what the clickable areas are of the various actions, and so yeah, that's all within the realm of possibilities.
You know, it would be really cool if you could sort of replay your Git commit history in the generated HTML package. Like just go back in time and say, oh, there I deleted it. That's that.
Yeah, who knows, right? But yeah, let's start with the basics. I'll add that jar file, that plugin in a bit, for what it's worth. But please just give it a shot and just file bug reports, feature requests. But yeah, I think we know for Lean, for example, where exactly everything is rendered. So we have like the ability to create clickable maps from that data. So the question then is like, do we export this to the SVG, or is it maybe better to add a little bit of JavaScript that handles that? I don't know what the best thing is. That's just to figure that out. That's just a little bit of extra work for the HTML variant. And for the PDF, it was just for printing, I guess, right? Just a simple export. So that's why I did that one first. But that is work that is ongoing. Great question. Autodoc. I'll add that one as well. The way that was done in Kettle was with some XSLT hacking by Roland, I think, back in the days, and that had the drawback that it didn't support plugins, or in a very clunky way. The new system is very transparent. Everything is actually already exportable to SVG through file export to SVG, and in the Hop server, you can also see the SVG rendering of your executing pipeline or workflow. So that is a lot cleaner these days. The output of the SVGs is also like pixel perfect. So that's really cool for printing or previewing or zooming. And so maybe a little bit of JavaScript would be cool, or something to say like, okay, I have like an iframe that you can zoom or move around and then click on it and go to another. Yeah. But
I mean, at the end of the day, the typical requirement is, if you're like a project, is, hey, can you write documentation, right? So it either needs to be sort of exportable to a wiki, or or sort of linked to in a markdown page where you say, hey, this is the repository, click here, and then you get like a clickable.
Yeah, it depends, right? Certain projects just have a requirement. We need to produce documentation, and then the PDF is great. And you can just say, hey, we have some documentation. And you can print it and just say, hey, this is the. But then it should be more like a book, like readable. What are the, maybe we can start thinking about, okay, so on the pipeline level, we have these description fields, and on the actions, and on all these levels, we have descriptions, but we're not using them. Maybe if they are available, we pick them up, and maybe we have special tags to, I don't know, but it's worth thinking about enriching the metadata then to make those books, those stories of your project more interesting. And even
There's like
yeah, even add like special metadata objects that just have like documentation, right? Just text or like you said, markup language in some format.
So I've once had in a project that we generated ASCII docs. So ASCII docs is like kind of a fancier version than Markdown, and it's like you can actually generate real books with it. It's a little bit like LaTeX, I would say.
Yeah.
And there was basically just a little command line tool that generated out of the documentation like a proper book at the end of the day, which then gets uploaded to a documentation server, and everybody could kind of have an interactive book to scroll through the project.
Yeah, we could do that. There's nothing blocking, because once you have all the SVG images, you can start referencing them, or maybe just have one page per pipeline and one page per workflow and one page per metadata object, and then just spit it out, right?
Yeah.
So that is all possible. Just we are familiar with ASCII doc. It's the language we use to document Hop itself. So we could do that. Great idea. I don't know how to generate the HTML from ASCII doc, but that should be something simple.
I think there's an ASCII doctor jar.
Okay.
So an ASCII doctor dependency.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be HTML, right? Like I would be totally fine if it's only ASCII doc, right? But whatever works best.
But I like the idea of adding the ability to have some of those metadata tags in the descriptions and stuff like that. A bit like Javadoc, I guess.
Yeah, but I was thinking like you could have like a documentation metadata, and that you can annotate any action or transform with or pipeline with, so that it's easier to maintain that locally and with references to websites or whatever, right? That sort of idea. I don't know. Yeah. That's a nice list. I'll Jira all these things, and let's see how many we can crack before the start of the next year or something like that.
You guys are awesome. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's been a blast. I've been sidetracked the last couple of weeks with work for the Neo4j YO for Apache Beam and other stuff. It's been crazy complicated things. But yeah, in the next couple of weeks that will die down, and then I will have more time for fun stuff again. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the feedback. Appreciate it.